Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into some really explosive claims from our source material about a supposed quid pro quo between the Kremlin and the Trump administration. We're going to break down how this high-stakes global drama is being connected directly to your wallet and your vote. Let's get right into it.
So everything in our source material really boils down to this one central question. The big claim here is that Vladimir Putin laid a direct offer on the table for Donald Trump, an offer that, if true, could completely change the game on the world stage.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll break down the details of this alleged Russian deal. Then, we'll get into the supposed fallout for NATO and the financial markets. From there, we'll look at the specific economic hit the source talks about, see how it all ties back to a really key Senate race, and finally, unpack the political arguments being made.
All right, let's kick things off with the big one. What exactly is this quid pro quo that the source material claims was offered? What's the deal all about?
Now, according to the source, and they say they've got two people familiar with the talks, Moscow put a classic quid pro quo on the table, a this for that. Basically, the deal was Russia stops giving Iran intel that's allegedly used to target U.S. assets if the U.S. stops giving Ukraine intel about Russia. The claim is this offer went straight to Trump's envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
And here's where things get really interesting. The source material puts that secret allegation right up against this very public statement from Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff. Here, he seems to be saying there's nothing to worry about, telling everyone we can take them at their word, that Russia isn't sharing that intel.
And this is the direct contradiction the source wants you to see. On one hand, you have the public statement, Russia says they're not sharing intel, but on the other hand, the allegation is that in private, Russia not only admitted they were sharing it, but they used it as a bargaining chip in a deal offered right to Witkoff's face.
So, what happened next? What was the immediate fallout from this alleged offer? Well, according to the source, this whole situation sent some pretty big shockwaves through international alliances like NATO and, of course, the financial markets.
And right in the middle of all this, the source points to this post attributed to Donald Trump. It claims his response wasn't about the alleged Russian deal at all. No, it was to go on the attack against NATO allies, calling them cowards and a paper tiger.
And all of this just adds fuel to the fire, right? You've got European diplomats reportedly getting nervous that this is all an attempt to split them from the U.S. At the same time, you see the markets getting spooked, with investors betting on inflation going way up and the possibility of interest rate hikes. Okay, so the source then takes these big, kind of abstract fears and tries to put some hard numbers on them. It tries to quantify what the economic damage from this conflict could actually look like for everyday people.
First up, you see this number, 5%. The source claims that's what investors are now betting U.S. inflation will hit in the next year, a direct consequence, it argues, of all this geopolitical instability.
Next up, oil prices. We're talking about a massive spike here. The source says Saudi Arabia is reportedly predicting at least $180 a barrel, with some analysts even suggesting it could climb as high as $200.
And finally, there's the cost of the war itself. The source throws out a huge number that comes up later in the clip. A $200 billion request that's apparently headed to Congress for funding.
So, here is where the story in the source material really takes a turn. It takes all this massive global stuff we've been talking about and brings it right down to a single, high-stakes political race back in the United States.
And that race is happening in North Carolina. It's between former Governor Roy Cooper and former RNC Chair Michael Whatley. The source video really frames this as the #1 must-watch Senate race in the whole country. A key chance, as they put it, for a red-to-blue flip.
So the source then brings in Governor Cooper to make his case. His argument, as you see here, is all about a lack of clarity. He's essentially saying, hey, we don't even know for sure why we're in this war, and we definitely don't have a plan to get out.
Now let's dig into the specific case Governor Cooper makes in this interview. This is where he connects all this high-level foreign policy stuff directly to what he calls kitchen table issues for voters back home in North Carolina. His argument is pretty straightforward. He's saying the administration's focus on this war is just making things tougher for regular families. He points to things like gas prices, which he says shot up almost $1 in just 3 weeks, and the economic pain from tariffs. And he paints his opponent, Michael Whatley, as just a rubber stamp for the current administration. And, to really drive the point home, he doesn't just talk numbers. The source shows him sharing stories about people he's met. There's Stephanie, a teacher who can't afford groceries. Tim, a veteran worried about VA cuts.
John, a small business owner watching his utility bills climb, and Meredith, a mom who's anxious about her kids' healthcare.
The source wraps up this whole section by making it crystal clear what the national stakes are. Cooper's argument is basically, look, this one race in North Carolina, it's the whole ballgame if you want to change who controls the U.S. Senate. It's presented as that important.
So, when you strip it all away, the whole story our source material is telling really leaves us with this one big question. How does something that happens on the other side of the world, like a secret deal between world leaders, actually end up impacting your life, and maybe even how you vote? That's really the thread that ties all